Go ahead.
When we started, you said this is consultation.
Not consultation in the legal sense of consultation with First Nations or anything like that. I mean more in a general sense of communication with the community. Okay, a couple more things and then I'll be handing it over. Just would like to go through the basic agenda. And we've worked on this with the other communities and it seems to work reasonably well, but we can make adjustments. First of all, it would probably be useful for you to have a little bit of an update or progress report on what's happened with PNCIMA since you last participated in a meeting on it, which may have been in the forum last year or in the community meetings last year that preceded that forum. So kind of a bit of an update, a little bit of an overview for those people that aren't as familiar with what PNCIMA is all about, that Bruce is going to provide, and Scott may have some additions that he'd like to add. That's not a very long presentation, 10-15 minutes. We'll take a few questions of a general nature, but we want to try and make sure we get to the real nub of the meeting, which is questions around how you're going to be, how you'd like to be engaged in the future. Then Neil's going to make a presentation that explains these different mechanisms in more detail. You know, kind of how the planning office thinks they might work and whether they might work for you. Following that, we'd like to work with you at each table through a set of questions that are on the tables. So you see this feedback form. So what has worked very well is just to have a kind of intense conversation at each table, and representatives of the steering committee, the planning office will sit with you, go through it, take notes, and then each table can kind of give the highlights of their conversation. And that way a lot more people can get involved in the discussion rather than just one or two or three people speaking. After we've done that, we'll come back to the plenary. Each table can kind of report out some of the highlights from their discussion. Any other sort of general questions or other questions that somebody has that might not be entirely on topic, that's when we'll try and answer them. Or I won't, but representatives of the steering committee and the planning office will. So that's the plan between now and 10 o'clock. Any questions about that or suggestions, concerns? Colin?
Who exactly is the steering committee?
The steering committee is responsible for the whole PNCIMA process, and they oversee the planning office. This is going to be explained to you again in the presentation. Yeah?
I temporarily got confused here for a sec. PNCIMA, how does it differ or does it overlap with the Guaymanas National Marine Forest?
Good question. Can you hold it?
Yeah.
Because it will get answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just totally, never mind, I thought I was here for that.
Oh, you thought you were here for that? Okay.
Yeah, sort of, never mind, I just confused myself. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah?
Yeah, I have a question of a general nature. If this is the time for that.
It's not. If you can hold it, we'll do an introductory presentation. We'll take a few general questions, and then we'll get into the detail. And at the end, we'll open it up one more time for any sort of residual general questions. Okay?
Fair enough.
Thanks.
I would just like to clarify, this is a federal initiative.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Federal and First Nations.
I'm First Nations.
Okay? Great. Bruce?
Okay. So I'm just going to give a very brief overview of the PNCIMA process, the PNCIMA initiative, and just a bit of an update on what's happened since we held a forum last March in Vancouver. So a bit of background, some progress to date, where we're going. So PNCIMA is a collaborative planning process that will develop an integrated management plan for the Pacific Central and North Coast area. So I don't have a pointer with me, but the dark shaded area, this map here, basically outlines the boundary of the PNCIMA area. And for the lady who was asking about, of course, Guayhanas is down here. So it's sort of, the Guayhanas area is within the PNCIMA area.
I know, but the initiative, some of the things overlap. But I'll get to that.
Yeah, so we'll get that later. And so the goal is to ensure sustainable human use and conserve ecological diversity of the area. And the planning process will bring together all interested parties, including First Nations, environmental non-government organizations, government agencies, and the coastal communities. So involving a lot of different people. So this is just a close-up of the area of PNCIMA that's within sort of the North Island area. So on the west coast of Vancouver Island, it comes down to Brooks Peninsula. Upper part of Brooks Peninsula is the boundary. And on the inside waters, south end of Quadra Island, and then it cuts off sort of just north of Butte Inlet. So Butte Inlet is not included in the PNCIMA area. So it gives you kind of an idea of the area. So this particular map sort of illustrates why we need to do integrated management planning. The line that goes up the coast is the basically shipping routes. Cruise lines go up that way. We've got some hatched areas which show fishing areas. The red areas are areas that have been identified as coral and sponge reef habitats in Central Hecate Strait. And that sort of trapezoid in the north area that's green is the area where Nikoon is proposing a wind power project. And so one of the benefits of integrated planning is to bring these different parties together to talk about their interests and to be able to understand interests and resolve any overlaps and conflicts. So why do we do integrated planning? Initiative will balance socioeconomic, cultural, and ecological objectives for oceans. Will help to forecast and address future development needs. Improve coordination of new and existing management process. Address conflicts between different ocean uses. Create greater certainty and sustainability in ocean management. And strengthen relationships among those involved with commercial, recreational users, environmental groups, governments, and First Nations. And it will respect existing legislative authorities. So we're not creating new regulations out of this process. It's working within the existing legislative and regulatory framework. So some of the outputs of the PNCIMA process, and the main output is an integrated management plan. And that plan would include a common understanding of the PNCIMA region's characteristics, an ecosystem-based management approach that respects cultural, social, economic, and ecological health of the area, marine spatial plans, include identification of various agencies' roles and responsibilities in integrated management planning. We'll provide enduring processes that can provide input to ongoing oceans management and, most importantly, an implementation strategy. So, since we had a forum in March 2009, there's been a lot of work that's been going on this initiative. We've released all the forum proceedings and presentations and videos. We've established a website, and that's www.pincima.org, which has all those documents on it. We've released a document called Issues, Challenges, and Opportunities Discussion Paper. Held numerous follow-up meetings with different interested parties. We started a socioeconomic and cultural overview and assessment report. And we held a workshop in February of this year in Prince Rupert, where we gathered lots of information